Ahoy sailors, I'm Coach Chris Childers, and I'm kind of a sad sailor right now. I was really excited to go sailing this spring, but it looks like we're going to have to wait a little bit. I'm also a little sad because I'm a sailing coach, and that means my students don't get to go sailing either. But I've got an idea. The thing I like best next to sailing is teaching sailing. And you're still here, and I'm still here. So why don't we learn together? We could practice our knots, share some sailing stories, learn the basics, so that way when it comes time to go sailing later this season, we'll be ready to go. Let's grab your pencil and paper, get ready to learn. It's Mr. Childers' Boathouse. Well, since everybody's been working so hard this spring to get ready to go sailing, myself included, you see I packed my bag here all ready to go. I thought maybe I could show you what I keep in my sail bag so that I'm ready for sailing. Let's take a look. When we're dressing for sailing, we're looking for a couple different things. We need to protect ourselves basically from the cold or the hot, from the sun, the wind, and the water. Depending on what season we're going sailing or what kind of sailing we're doing, we might have to wear different stuff. So why don't I talk first about what I would wear if it's warm weather and I'm going dinghy sailing. I'm probably going to want to wear my swimsuit. Really helpful if I fall in the water. It's allowed to get wet and it dries out pretty quick too. If I don't want to wear my swimsuit, maybe I think I'm pretty good and I'm not going to capsize today, I have a pair of sailing shorts that are really good too. They don't have any pockets in the back, so I don't sit on stuff, but they got big pockets in the front. They're also a little water resistant, so I can get splashed and they won't be too cold. On my upper body, I wear a couple different things, but it's all a synthetic shirt. So here's what I mean by that. The cotton shirt that you might wear to school or while playing soccer or something like that is good, but if it gets wet, it gets cold real fast and it takes a long time to dry, especially when we're out there in the wind. So instead, what we wear, we call them dry fit or a synthetic shirt. It helps dry out really quick and it's nice and breezy so it stays cool. I have a light color white one and it's short sleeve for when it's really warm out there. I also have a long sleeve one if I want a little bit more sun protection. Remember that even though it might be warm out there and we want to stay cool by not bundling up too much, we still have to protect ourselves from the sun. So a long sleeve shirt does that pretty well. If it's starting to get a little bit chillier, sometimes I'll wear a black one. Black clothes are going to be a lot warmer in the sun than white or light colored clothing will be. So that's what I'd wear. Should we try it all on? Let's do it. Ready? Sweet. The other things I always wear when I go sailing, I like to bring a buff with me. Helps keep the sun off my neck. Some sweet sunglasses. Don't forget a cool hat. Keep the sun out of my eyes. I've always got my sailing gloves so I can grab the lines even if they get wet. And then last but not least, can't go sailing without my life jacket. Pretty cool. You know, I really like dressing up, especially in my sailing gear. It helps me remember what it feels like to go sailing. I think I'm going to leave some of this stuff on. Okay, what if it gets a little colder out there, or if we're doing some other kinds of sailing where we're maybe not going to get so wet? What's some other stuff we can check out? After it gets cold enough that just one t-shirt isn't going to be enough, I like to wear a fleece. A fleece zip-up these are really, really warm. They can get a little bit wet and still keep you nice and warm. This is also synthetic, so it's not cotton, so it's not going to soak up that water. Fleece is a really nice move. course, we have our foul weather pants for when it gets real splashy out there. These don't make sense to wear on a dinghy so much because lots of times we're going to fall in the water on purpose or on accident, and these will get really, really wet. So I wear these a lot when I'm doing coaching or when I'm sailing on bigger boats, but they help to keep me nice and warm. On a dinghy, when it's getting colder, I will wear one of these kinds of jackets. We call this a spray jacket. It's only got a little bit of zip up here. That way the water can't get in there, and it blocks the wind, so it keeps me a lot warmer. The spray jacket is a really, really nice piece to have. But if it gets real cold out there, I'm going to be super thankful that I have my great big warm sailing jacket. A real good jacket is also going to have built into it a hood. Makes for a nice sailing, day of sailing in case it's raining or if it's real cold out there. Another bit that I don't always wear on dinghies but can be helpful, and they certainly help when I'm coaching or if I'm sailing on bigger boats, are knee pads. If I have to kneel down, sometimes that can bother my knees, whether you're old or if you're young. So having some knee pads can be really helpful. Should we try some of this on? All right, here goes nothing. All right, that's a nice trick. So here I'm wearing the rest of my sailing gear for cold weather. Other things that I don't have on yet that I'd probably wear if I was going sailing and it was a little bit colder. If it's not too cold, I could stick to my baseball cap, but probably if it's getting this cold, I'm going to wear my beanie. I like this one because in case I fall over, it's going to be real easy to see my bright yellow hat. Super sweet sunglasses, can't forget them. My gloves will go right in here. And the other thing I like to do when I'm doing coaching or sailing on a big boat is I like to bring a special tool, like a pliers or a sailing tool. It's very helpful in case something goes wrong, I can fix it. Well, there you go, that's my gear. Some of the other things that I like to bring in my sail bag that I don't usually bring out onto the boat with me are a towel. It's always important after I'm done sailing, especially on small boats where I'm very likely to get wet, that I can dry myself off. I'll also bring a change of clothes, and maybe the most important is a spare pair of socks. Nothing like warm feet when I can get them back on land. Not bad. But after we're all done sailing and we're done trying on our gear, it's also really important to put it away nicely. This might be a nice chance if you didn't put your gear away great from last year, maybe we could give it a hose down now. Let's head outside and hose it down. All right, well, we're out here in my backyard, and now that we're not using our sailing gear anymore, it's important to keep it nice and clean. So we're gonna do that by hosing it down. But first what we need to do is set ourselves up a clothesline. So for my clothesline, I'm gonna go between two trees. This one over here, there it is. And then this one over here. I'll show you the knots that we want to use to tie this up so it doesn't fall down. The first thing I want to do is find one tree to tie it onto. This one's pretty good. I don't want to tie it up too high like up here. That could be a little too flimsy. Instead, I found a nice strong part of the tree right here. I'm going to loop my line around, and then I'm going to create a loop where the end coming from the bitter end is on top. The end coming from the standing end is on bottom. Now the rabbit comes out of the tree, around the back of the hole, out of the hole, around the back of the tree, and then back through the hole. Pull it nice and tight. That should hold us on this side. Over on this end, I found that this part of the tree is pretty strong, so we're gonna go right above this branch here. I'm gonna take my line and go through once. Now a bowline isn't really going to work here because we wouldn't be able to get it that tight. Instead, what we'll do is a round turn and 2 half hitches. So my next step is going to be to go all the way around again. Now that I've got my round turn on here, see how the entire branch is surrounded by line? That's a round turn. Now I'm going to get it nice and tight. See how I'm giving some slack to this line? Once it's nice and tight, then I'm going to do half hitches. I don't have to use the entire line. See how I've made a bite? I'm just going to go over, under, and through. I can hold my fingers right here and they'll hold the tension for me while I finish up that half hitch. Let's do another one. Over, under, and through. Hold the knot above to hold the tension. A little knot in my knot there. And then one more will do it. All right, let's check it out. There's a knot on one end. There's the knot on the other. I think we're in good shape. Let's hang some clothes. All right, now that we've got our clothes hung up here, I want to show you what to really look for. What's a sign that your foul weather gear really needs a spray down. Let's check it out. Look especially close at the zippers. See how this one's got a bunch of flaky white stuff on it? That's actually the metal corroding. It's almost like rust, but on this metal it ends up looking like that. That comes from getting these zippers salty and not cleaning them like I should have. That one too. The toggle broke off on this one, so I had to use a paper clip. We'll hose that down especially so that way the salt doesn't hurt it anymore. You can also see that on my pants here, there's a lot of salt from when I haven't washed these before. So that's what we're trying to wash off this time. Okay, now that we're all set up, break out that hose and let her rip. Awesome. Okay, now that we're all done putting our gear away, one more thing I wanted to show you. On my sail bag, it has these clips. That's how we're closing off my sail bag to make sure nothing falls out. But in the old days, they didn't have these clips. So if you were living on a boat and you wanted to make sure all your stuff was kept safe and that folks weren't taking anything from it, you'd tie a special knot so that if anybody did go through your stuff, you'd know. This knot is called a thief knot, and I'm going to show you how to tie it. So most people, we'll go down here, nice. Okay, most people when they're tying up a thing using two ends of a line, they're going to do a regular old square knot. Right over left, underneath, left over right, underneath. It makes a nice square knot just like that. Symmetrical. I know it's a good square knot because both bitter ends are on the same side of the knot. See how they're both on the top of the knot? Well, the thief knot uses that idea that most people tie a regular square knot pretty easily and shows you how to catch somebody from stealing stuff. So instead of tying it the normal way, I'm going to make the square knot with one bitter end on the bottom and one bitter end on the top. This is what it looks like. If you only look at this, it looks symmetrical and the same, but if you see on this one, one bitter end is on the bottom and another bitter end is on the top. If you tied your bag up like this and you came back and it was a regular old square knot, well then you'd know somebody had probably been through your stuff. So folks who lived on big boats way back in the day would tie a thief knot to see if anybody was going through their bag. You could tie a thief knot too, but I bet all our friends at sailing aren't going through our stuff. But it's still fun to tie anyway. Well, the other thing I thought we could do, since we can't go sailing just yet, is talk about something else that you might do on your first day of sailing class. So I've got my computer right here. Why don't I show you about some cool stuff you can find on Wikipedia and maybe a cool video before we take off today. Let's jump in. So now that we're plugged into the computer here, we got our headphones on so we don't bother other folks in the room. I thought I could tell you about some of the cool different kinds of sailboats that you're going to see once you start sailing lessons. Let me turn on my screen here so you could see it, and I'll show you what I can tell you. This is a Wikipedia article that I found. The title of it is Sail Plan. Sail Plan is actually what they're referring to is what kinds of sails your boat has on it at any given time. Does it have one sail? Does it have two sails? How many masts does it have? But I thought something we want to talk about before we get there is how many boats does your boat have? Lots of the boats that you might start out by sailing maybe have just one hull. I'll zoom in so you can see. Or like one hull, or do they have two or three? All the boats are going to sail mostly the same, but depending on how many hulls the boat has, one for a monohull, two for a catamaran, three for a trimaran, the boat might handle a little bit differently. It might be a little bit harder to turn, might be more stable sometimes and less stable on the others. But that's generally the first way we figure out how sailboats are different from each other, is how many hulls do they have? Next, we talk about sail plan, like how many sails do they have? The interesting part of this article, I found I had to scroll down a little bit. They talk a lot about real big boats, but this was the one I thought would be cool. You can find a lot of types of sail plans that we don't really deal with much, but do you see any that you might recognize? How about a cat boat? This looks like some boats that I have taught on before. Also a sloop. A lot of these ones are more for bigger boats. You can see that we start getting into different numbers of masts and stuff, but let's talk about some of these small boats. The big difference here is going to be how the sails are shaped. Is it a squarish sail or a rectangular sail? Or is it a triangular sail? This one might look familiar to a lot of you. This is kind of what an opti is like. See, it has this sprit. You have lots of different parts of the sail, and you can get parts of the boats from this too. But this is what we call a cat boat type of a boat. It's just got the one sail on it. That's how I know it's a cat boat. And that sail is all the way up front. And this type of, not quite a rectangle, but a quadrilateral sail is called a sprit rig, or a sprit sail cat boat. That fourth corner, the peak in this case, is held all the way up in the air by that sprit. So you might see that. Another one you might see a lot on your boats with two masts, I'm sorry, with one mast. Let's see, I think I saw it down here, is a sloop. If your boat has one mast and two sails, we call that a sloop. The head sail is any sail that's in front of the mast, and the main sail is usually the biggest one behind the mast. Your 420 or your FJ or your RS Viva, they're more like a sloop type rig. One sail and two masts, and they're both triangular in this case. The other big difference that many sailors point out is, why do some boats have big masts or more than one mast and some boats not? So the picture that I want to show you down here is this one. These sails all look a little bit funny. We're calling that kind of a sail is called a junk sail, J-U-N-K, like trash, even though they were used by a lot of different cultures for sailing for a long time. But what this picture is really good for is showing you how different masts, different numbers of masts can mean different kinds of boats. You'll probably see a cat boat or a cat rig, just like your opti or maybe your laser. Another kind that you might see out there is if it has two masts, like these ones in the corner, a yawl or a ketch or a schooner. If the back mast is taller, like this one is, that means it's a schooner. If the front mast is taller, it's either a ketch or a yawl. The difference between a ketch and a yawl is where the back mast is. If it's further forward than where you steer from or where the rudder is, then it's a catch. See how on the catch, the back mast is a little bit more forward in the boat versus in the yawl, the back mast is way off the end of the boat. I like to imagine if there was a little man steering the catch and this mast fell down, he'd have to catch it. Whereas if the man was steering in this boat and the little mast fell down, y'all would be all right. That's how I remember those two. The other one I wanted to show you, because I found another cool video that I wanted to send you off with today, is some of these weird kinds of boats. This one I thought was really neat, and you'll see it in the video that I send to you. This looks like it would be a really big boat, but you can actually make a small boat that uses this kind of rig called a lugger rig. So check that out. These are going to be some things that you can brush up on before you get out there sailing. If you can start to visualize what kind of boat you're going to sail and where you're going to sit in it, that might be a little bit more helpful. You can always Google or Wikipedia the different kinds of boats that you might be sailing, like an Optimist or a 420 sailboat or an RS Fiva sailboat, and that'll give you some more pictures of what it's going to look like when you sail it. You can figure out where you'll put your feet, where you put your hands, and we can do some more videos about that next time too. The last thing I wanted to show everybody before we get out of here for the day is a cool video that I found. We are spending a lot of time on the computer here, maybe in front of the TV, but that doesn't mean we can't look at sailing stuff, right? So this video that I'm going to show you is from a company called Waterlust. They're a real cool crew that sails out of Miami, and they have lots of great videos on all sorts of ocean science and cool sailboat type stuff. So when I went on YouTube, I searched for Waterlust, and then I found all their videos, and the one I want to show you is towards the bottom. It's when they build their own sailboat and go sailing down the intracoastal waterway. The intracoastal waterway is a cool different thing that we can talk about in the future once we talk about some charts and stuff, but in this video, sailing down the ICW in a canoe, part 1, is a really cool one. I don't want to play it here, but you can look up this search term, sailing down the ICW in a canoe, part 1. It's a series of 3 videos that Waterlust did where they build 2 of these cool little boats, and then they sail them from Virginia or Maryland all the way down to Miami without ever going out in the ocean. Kind of a cool thing. Check it out if you've got some free time. Keep studying your sailing, everybody, and we'll see you here later this week with some more cool sailing knowledge. Thanks for stopping in. It was good to see you. Bye-bye.